Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this seminar on Zakat. I'm very pleased to be able to be part of this today. My name is Faizal Karbani. I'm the CEO and founder of Simply Ethical. As most of you will know, we work within the financial services space, in particular within Islamic finance. Our real purpose is to help Muslims in this country and beyond with their financial planning in a Sharia compliant way. And Zakat is a fundamental part of that planning. It's a pillar of Islam. And we always talk to our clients about it. In fact, we provide Zakat calculations on any money they invest with us. And we're always at hand to try to help them with this important obligation. We thought with the run up to Ramadan, it's an opportune time to present on this topic. In my experience of over 20 years, I find still today, many people are still confused. They're not sure how to calculate zakat. They know about zakat, but the knowledge is very different across I would say, the Muslim population in this country and beyond. And we thought we could hopefully help in that cause of enlightening Muslims, educating them on the principles of zakat and how to calculate it and the important kind of questions you might have, because there's always nuances with zakat and even differences of opinion. So I'm very pleased to be able to have Dr. Sohail Hanif with us, who is the CEO of NZF. I think NZF, it's fair to say that they're the premier organization when it comes to zakat and everything to do with zakat, in terms of educating the masses on it, in terms of providing a facility whereby people can pay into them and then they will distribute the zakat out to those recipients who are eligible. And they do a lot of good work in understanding who and where best to give that zakat. So we're very, very privileged, very honored to have Dr. Sohail with us. He's a, mashallah, scholar of Islam as well as a very educated man who has specialized in this area of zakat. And we're very privileged to have him to share a discourse on zakat. He'll do a presentation for 30 to 35 minutes. And then, inshallah, we will have an opportunity for question and answers. I'm pretty sure it might not be enough time, as we aim to finish within an hour, but if it's not enough time that you've had your questions answered, please don't fear. We're always at hand to answer your questions, or at least funnel them to the right people who can answer those questions. So don't think that this is the only time you'll have to have your answers or questions answered. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Sohail, and then inshallah we will come back into the question and answer session after the presentation. Dr. Sohail, please, inshallah.
Thank you very, very much, Sayyidi Faisal, for the very kind Faisal, for the very kind introduction. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be collaborating with Simply Ethical, because working with zakat is just a part of managing your funds and according to the teachings of Allah and His Messenger, and it's a very apt, I think, partnership with Simply Ethical. So thank you very much for arranging this. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Very warm welcome to everybody this afternoon. My intention is to cover within the next 35 minutes, no more, everything that I think you need to understand why we have a zakat in Islam, what exactly it is, how we calculate it, and some brief reflections on where to spend it. I will be covering a fair bit of material in a small amount of time. I don't want you to panic about that or be worried. And the reason for that is you have no need to memorize what I'm saying, because towards the end of my presentation, I will be walking you through some very excellent, accessible, self-explanatory online resources. So just focus on comprehension, understanding what I'm saying. Don't worry about memorizing it. And I'll show you the resources. And I'm very happy to share as well this very slide presentation that we're looking at today, if there's a way for Brother Faisal to share it with you. I've got the lecture notes underneath it. If you ever would wish to repeat this presentation in any other gathering or place that you are. And that's actually where I'm going to start from today, my brief sojourn in the 6 topics you can see on the slide. Because before getting into learning about zakat, I do want to invite you all to consider maybe you too can be giving zakat presentations to people in your networks, families, friends, other networks you might be a part of. Because the truth is, as you'll see, many people simply don't understand zakat, and it's one of the pillars of our faith. And no one can educate your networks and benefit them the way that you can. The first 4 bullets on this slide are all snippets of hadiths, all about the virtue of sharing knowledge with people. The second might not feel like a full sentence, the second bullet, but it's part of a hadith that says when we die, our good deeds are cut off because we're no longer acting on the earth. But there are some things that continue even after we're gone, because it's as if we are still acting, doing things on the earth. And one of them is knowledge we've been able to pass on to others. And as long as that knowledge is being practiced and passed on, it's like a part of us is still alive. So before we start, I'm inviting you all to consider, would you like to educate others about zakat? Even if you're not a scholar, as long as we're connected to scholars, we share reliable resources, you can do it. There's a link here to a volunteering page, and I'll walk you through it, inshallah, when I do the online walkthrough that I want to share with you. But please do consider, we're happy to train you, give you resources, and get you educating. Now, why do we have a zakat in Islam? There's 3 things I always like to stress. One is that the word zakat, it means purification and growth. Why does it mean purification and growth? It's because when a year passes over your wealth, it's no longer all yours. A part of it is really the property of the needy. If we don't give it to them, it's like we're usurping somebody else's wealth, and there's no blessing in stolen wealth. And so by getting this amount of your wealth out to its rightful owners, you maintain the wholesomeness and the blessedness of the rest. And blessed wealth grows. That's the promise of Allah and His Messenger. You'll find a growth in what the money can do for you. You'll find a growth in its protection. And you can find growth in avenues of money, of income that you maybe did not have. That's the ongoing message in the Quran and the Sunnah. Give and you'll be taken care of. So the word zakat implies that the beneficiary of zakat in the very first instance is actually the giver. That's important to keep in mind. Point number 2, the rules of zakat I'm going to be sharing with you today were all taught by our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and revealed to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina in the second half of his mission. So the question arises then, what was happening in the first half of that mission? What's the role of giving and giving to the needy in that first half? And what I can share with you in brief is, if you survey the surahs revealed in Mecca in the first half of our Prophet's mission, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you'll see the extreme centrality of care for the needy. In fact, you'll find very stern messages very early on in the revelation that if you are not there for the downtrodden, and that's why you find often mention of orphans and the needy. You find mention of refugees, if I can translate that, for Ibn Sabil. And you find ideas that if you're not there for them, God will ask you about that on the Day of Judgment. You will realize when you study the Meccan Quran that Islam clearly came with what we term today as social economic justice and a challenge in social economic justice. So therefore, point number 2, I just want to share that caring for the needy, standing for the downtrodden, representing their needs and rights is part of the blueprint of Islam from day one. It is not simply a thing Muslims do because they want to score points with God, but it is part of the essential meaning of being a Muslim on earth. That's just something I'd like you to keep in your mind. Point number 3, when our Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, he laid the foundations for Islamic civilization. And he said that this civilization is founded on 5 principles, what we call the 5 pillars of Islam, testifying that there's one God and Muhammad is his messenger, ﷺ, establishing the 5 daily prayers, fasting in Ramadan, giving the zakat, performing the Hajj. These 5 pillars, we often think of them as pillars in our personal practice, which they are, but they're bigger than that. These are pillars that uphold and bring together an entire community of faith. They create the notion of a community of faith and they keep it safe. The Arabic word for the community of faith is ummah. These are 5 pillars for ummah. If you look, for example, at prayer is, I believe, Islam's greatest social institution. Prayer is something we've been told to offer in groups. So we come together as a group and we offer the prayer. Prayer is something for the sake of which we were told to establish mosques, and mosques are Islam's greatest social institution, because mosques are the melting pot of our community. They tell us that when you're in that space, you are united not just by ethnicity and not just by color and not just by economic status and not just by language. Something else is bringing you together, and that is that you all belong to Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it creates in the psyche the fact that I belong to a community of faith. That's why wherever we've had mosques established in Great Britain, you'll find over the passage of time, what will you find? Muslims start living around the mosque. You might find Muslim businesses. You might find Muslim butchers. You will definitely find classes for children. You'll probably find clubs and educational opportunities for ladies, and perhaps social groups for the elderly. Even if you don't enter the mosque will anchor the ummah around it. If you look at fasting, it's a very personal act, but we eat together more than any other time of the year. We fill our mosques more than any other time of the year. If you think of Hajj, we travel once in a lifetime to worship Allah amidst the global community of the faithful. Look at the first pillar. You are actually testifying to the community that you believe what they believe, and that gives you access that you are now part of this community upheld by the pillars. So it's within this logic and framework I'd like you to think about zakat. Zakat is not now just charity in general. Zakat is part of these powerful 5 institutions that come together to uphold, nurture, sustain, create a community of faith, what we call in Arabic ummah. That's why zakat has 2 very fascinating constraints in it. One is that zakat is paid to Muslims, because the message of zakat is when 2 people say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a tie is created between them like the tie of blood. And we all know that when you have a tie of blood with someone, it necessitates a special extra duty of care. So similarly, within this faith family, there is a special duty of care, and the name of that duty of care is zakat. A second interesting constraint is all of our classical schools of law agreed that the essential conception of zakat was that it's meant to be distributed actually within the city where you live. Why is that? Because it's meant to, as a pillar of our faith, we are meant to have feel a sense of responsibility towards the community where we are. Who are the Muslims around me? What are their needs? Are their needs being met? If we don't develop this concern, then shame on us for gathering shoulder to shoulder in the mosque, but not actually being there for each other. Our classical schools only debated whether the localizing is a sunnah or a fard, but they agreed on this essential nature, and it creates within us a duty that over the passage of time, we have to create experts in our communities who will tell us who are the Muslims, what are their needs, how can we best see to their needs. And you could say the entire sacred law of Islam centers around the creation and nurturing of the community of the faithful. Why is that so important? It's because our Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hand of Allah is with the group. And our Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when a person is by themselves, the devil is their companion. But when there are 2 people, the devil is further away. The idea of the entire sacred law of Islam is that when we worship Allah in community, we strengthen each other, we support each other, we remind each other, we educate each other, we pick each other up, and we take each other across to the finish line. What is the best thing we can do for the next generation of believers who will come after us? The best thing we can do is invest in our communal ties and communal institutions, so that the next generation have the opportunity to learn about Allah and His Messenger in the comfort of community, and not in the cold of being outliers and outcasts in society. And so that's why, interestingly, Salat and Zakat, which you could say are the greatest of these institutions of the sacred law, they come side by side 28 times in the Holy Quran, because prayer brings people together in space, and Zakat says, now look after each other. So 3 things I want you to think about if somebody says, why is there a zakat? Not an exhaustive list, but a very important list. Number 1, the giver is the first beneficiary. Number 2, care for the needy is part of the blueprint of the Islamic message. And number 3, zakat is part of these very important 5 pillars, which serve to come together to create, sustain, and nurture a community of the faithful, in Arabic, ummah. Now, what is zakat? I'm now going to get into These 5 very important questions, which will let you know what is it that we're talking about. What is zakat? What kind of wealth is zakat on? Zakat is not easy to depict. It is not a wealth tax. It is not an income tax. It's very hard to give it a very clear label. In classical fiqh, our scholars call it a payment on growing wealth. And the Arabic term is al-mal an-nami. To illustrate what we mean by growing wealth, paying zakat should not feel like you're losing an arm and a leg, because if you do, you're just going to run away from it, and that's not the purpose of zakat. Paying zakat should feel like a haircut. If you've been blessed with hair, I always have to say that because I'm giving a hair example with not much hair on my head. If you have been blessed with hair, what does a haircut represent? It's something you do periodically. You don't do it all the time. You do it periodically. It makes you look nice and trim and presentable when you do it. And most importantly, you do not feel the pain of loss. You don't feel the pain, oh my goodness, I've lost my hair. What am I going to do? Whereas you would for most other parts of your body if you were to get them removed. What's the difference? Because you know your hair is going to grow back. It's constantly growing. Zakat is like that. Zakat is removing from you some of your wealth, not a large amount, from the portion of your wealth that's like your hair. It's always growing, meaning all year long, all of your activity, all of your work, all of your effort is to grow this part of your wealth. If you take a little bit away, you don't feel the pain. So that's why zakat is on the 3 basic human economies. Animal herders pay a zakat. What's the growing wealth in an animal herding society? It's heads of flock. Every season they're having babies. Every season the flock is growing. If you take a few away for your neighbor, you don't feel the pain because you're always filling that gap with your activity of the year. The other economy is agricultural. All year long, every season there's brand new produce from the earth. If you give a little bit to your neighbor, you don't feel the pain because there's all this new growth every season. Our economy is the trade and services economy. Whoever you meet, wherever they are, their economic activity is only to achieve growth in one single thing, which is the medium of exchange. So what is zakat on in our economy? It's simply money and what's money like. That's it. That's what growing wealth means in our economy. And what does that mean? It's actually just 4 items. What are the 4 items? Money, gold and silver, because they've traditionally acted as money, and trade stock, which means anything you bought to sell. Because anything you bought to sell is a liquid holding in your hand. It's not a fixed asset of yours. So what is money like in our economy? Money, gold, silver, trade stock. Zakat is only on these 4 things of your wealth. I'll come later to shares, crypto, and pensions, and I'll show you that these modern instruments only have zakat if they contain and act as these 4. So these are the 4. I want you to keep them in your mind. Number 2, how much wealth do you have to owe zakat? Our Prophet, God bless him and give him peace, he laid a minimum threshold of wealth for each economy, of the economies I laid out to you. In the trade and services economy, he laid it out in terms of gold dinars and silver dirhams. 20 gold dinars, 200 silver dirhams. It was of the same value in his time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Over time, silver depreciated with respect to gold. Our scholars have said, use the one that's best for the poor. When you're measuring your wealth, use the threshold that's in the advantage of the poor. That traditionally scholars have interpreted to mean the silver nisab because it's lower and it leads to more zakat being paid. I'll show you both values online in a little bit. Our presentation will follow the lower silver nisab, which is approximately £400. So what makes you a zakat payer then? It's when your money plus your gold plus your silver plus your trade stock minus debts and liabilities takes you above this nisab threshold, then you become a zakat payer. But when do you do the calculation? You don't have to do the calculation every day. You do not need a spreadsheet. You do not need an accountant. You don't have to be thinking about zakat all year long, because it's meant to be an easy practice that all Muslims can do all over the planet, all over the world. So what's the idea? One day in the year, only one day, you have to really think about zakat. And on that day, you'll add up what you own of money, of gold, of silver, of trade stock. And on that day, you will subtract what you owe other people. And the final number you pay 2.5% on. And the rest of the year, don't worry about it until the next year comes. So that's a very simple snapshot calculation, not a running assessment of your wealth. The only tricky thing is this in this topic is when is the date? And the date is actually determined by your personal economic history. So the way this works is the first time in your life after puberty that your money plus gold plus silver plus trade stock minus debts and liabilities, the first time that took you above this nisab threshold, this minimum threshold of wealth, what you were meant to do was to note the date on the lunar calendar, nothing else. 1 year later, on the same date, you again calculate your zakatable worth. And if you're still above the nisab, now you pay 2.5%. Next year, still above the nisab, 2.5%. Next year, still above the nisab, 2.5%. That's your date for the rest of your life, unless 1 year you are below the nisab on that date, in which case you don't pay zakat and you lose the date. You wait till you next cross the nisab, note the date. 1 year later, are you still above the nisab? Now that's your new date, 2.5%, and you stick to it throughout your life. So the date is based on your life. If you don't know your date, the best thing is to estimate it. It might be your first paycheck after work, after university. It might be if your parents had wealth stored in your name. It could just be when you hit puberty. If you're a boom to bust businessman or woman, maybe it's the last time you went from bust to boom. Maybe that's your date. If you got married and you were given a big sum of gold just as you got married, and before then you didn't have much in your name, maybe your marriage date is your date. Do your best to think what might that might date be and stick to it. If you really struggle with that, then fine, you can choose one arbitrarily. There's no notion that zakat is due in Ramadan. Zakat is actually due on your date. People like to give in Ramadan for the blessings of the month. That's absolutely fine, but treat it like a prepayment, meaning you are estimating what you're going to owe. Pay it out in Ramadan if you like, but when you come to your date, that's when you know what you actually owe. If what you estimated was an underestimate, it's fine. You can top it up on your zakat date. If it was an overestimate, it's fine. If you like, you can carry it over for the next zakat year. That's something about when you pay. Now, does zakat time out? And what I mean by this question is, if you haven't been paying in the past, you still have to pay it. And the answer is yes, because it's somebody else's money and you owe it to them. If you're somebody who's not been paying zakat in the past, my advice to you is don't be overwhelmed by the past. Just sort out the present. How do you do that? Identify your zakat date. Identify when you last crossed it. That's the zakat that you owe immediately. So calculate what it was, pay it out. Figure out when you're next going to cross your zakat date. Figure out, get ready and to pay that off. And then take some time out. Calculate, working backwards in your life, what zakat you might have missed. Estimate it. And then make a plan to pay it off in a way that's manageable to you, even if it's just a £10 a month direct debit. Now, does anything you pay in charity count as zakat? Our scholars say, no, you have to have intended it as zakat. How do you intend it? At any point that this is your zakat, at any point before the recipient consumes it. Can somebody else pay your zakat for you from their money? The answer, you might be surprised, is absolutely yes, as long as you know about it and approve of it, because this counts as your intention. It's quite frequent that this happens in families. So zakat on all wealth? No, it's on money like wealth, money, gold, silver, trade stock. How much do you have to own above this nisab threshold? When do you pay it on your zakat date? Does it time out? You always owe it. Can anything count as zakat? You have to have intended it. Now I'm going to go into a bit more detail, a slightly deeper dive into these items with the following 6 questions. After that, I'll show you my online resources. What's the formula in a zakat calculation? Money plus gold plus silver plus trade stock minus debts and liabilities. If the final figure is above the nisab, 2.5% of it. Adding up money is very easy. It could be physical, could be in your bank. Add it all up. It could be dollars and it could be pounds. Just convert it to a common currency. Add it all up. The only tricky thing in money is money that's not in your hand, but it belongs to you. What do I mean by that? Money you've lent out, you're waiting to receive it. Or money from the sale of a trade item, you're waiting to receive it. This is your money. You are the owner of it, but it's not in your hand. That gives you 2 options on how to pay the zakat of this money. One option is just pay the zakat on it anyway. The advantage of that is that once you receive the money, you've already paid it zakat. You can just put it straight away, nothing more to calculate. Another option is don't pay zakat on it. Wait to receive it. Once you receive it, then backtrack whatever zakat you might have owed for it. For example, if it was a 3-year loan, once you receive the money in year 3, you can just backtrack, estimate 3 or calculate rather 3 years of zakat from this money, pay it out, and then put the rest away. So you've got 2 options on money that you're waiting for. to receive, that belongs to you but not in your hand. Gold and silver, our scholars agreed that there's zakat on gold and silver, but they debated on jewelry that people wear. So some of our scholars felt that there is a zakat on jewelry that people wear because it still maintains its value. It can be liquidated on a fair market anywhere on the planet, unlike other secondhand goods. And that's why it became popular as jewelry. And other scholars felt that because you're wearing it, it's become more like your clothing, more like a fixed asset, no longer like a growing asset, and it shouldn't have a zakat on it. So we typically teach both positions in our workshops and let people choose what best accords with their understanding and practice. If you are going to pay zakat on jewelry, then what you want to estimate is the scrap gold value of the jewelry, meaning what would a jeweler give you for it, which is lower than the bullion value. And I'll show you on our online calculator, how that is embedded. And if the jewelry has to be at least 50% pure. So if it's less than 12 karat gold, as far as the zakat rules are concerned, it's not gold. You don't have to pay zakat on it. I hope I didn't offend anyone by saying that. Good. When it comes to trade items, anything you bought to sell has a zakat liability. If you bought it for personal use and now you're selling it, it is not a trade item. There's no zakat due on it. If I bought it to sell it, but now I'm using it like a user of it, there's no zakat due because it's no longer a trade item. A trade item is something I bought it to sell it, and that's still my intention when my zakat anniversary arrives. These items, I have to estimate their market value on that date, not what I bought it for, but on the date of my zakat anniversary. What would it get me if I sold it today? I add that to my zakat calculation. So intentionality is a gray area of sorts in this topic. So we have to just invest why you do something, why you buy something. So if somebody buys a second house and we ask them, why did you buy the second house? If they answer, well, it's a long-term investment, I didn't want my money depreciating or losing value. I thought that maybe I'll sell it one day, maybe I'll retire and move into it, maybe I'll give it to my son. This person with this intention I've summarized is not trading in the property. There's no zakat on the value of such property. If they say to you, I bought it to put it on rent, there is no zakat on the value of that property because they did not buy the property to sell it. Rather, the property is a fixed holding of theirs, which currently is on rent. Rent is like a salary. It's just money coming in. Some of that money is going to go out again in other expenses. But the money that you have on your date, you pay zakat on it. Very simple. But if somebody says, I bought the house to sell it, I'm just going to fix it up and put it back on the market, this person is trading in property and they owe zakat on the full market value of that property. Same with cars. Many cars for pleasure have no zakat. Many cars for rental have no zakat on the value of the car. But many cars for resale, there is zakat on the values of those cars. Now we go to modern investments, shares. If I buy shares to sell them, I am trading in shares. Shares for me are trade stock. Like all other trade stock, I owe zakat on the full market value of these shares. However, if I'm not buying shares to sell them, I bought them for long-term holdings, or maybe I'm holding them as part of a payment plan at work, then I am not trading in the shares. So I do not owe zakat on the full value of the shares. However, the shares represent part ownership of all assets in that company. Some of those assets will be money, gold, silver, trade stock. So I do owe zakat on a portion of my shares, not all of it. Which portion? The portion of your shares that correspond to the portion of your ownership of zakatable assets in this company. Sounds a bit complicated. What you would do if you wanted to do the calculation yourself is you would go to the balance sheet of this company and you would estimate from the figures you can see, if the company is worth 10 million, how much are the zakatable assets of that company? Let's say they're worth 1 million. So you can say, so 10% of this company is zakatable. Therefore, you pay zakat on 10% of your shares. 2.5% of 10% of your shares. If that's too complicated, which it is complicated to do. Muftis we work with went through the FTSE 100 public listed companies, and they found that the zakatable worth of a company, the proportion of a company's worth that is zakatable, never exceeds 25%. So their advice is that you pay 2.5% of 25% of the value of your shares. You can take that from us and don't not do any calculation, or you can go through the balance sheet as I advised. Our answer on pensions is very, very similar. Now, pensions are a new, obviously a new topic. They work in interesting ways, maybe not the same in different countries, and certainly not the same as in the past. So you might find other answers online. You're most welcome to consult scholars that you trust. The scholars that we work with, their advice on pensions are as follows. If your pension is a defined benefit scheme, which means that there's no investment in your name while you work, but after you retire, there's a salary you receive, then while you work, there is nothing you have to calculate in your pension for your zakat. And after you work, it's just after you retire, just a salary. So it's treated like any other salary. You know, it's just a source of money. Whatever money you have on your zakat date, you pay zakat on. So there's no special treatment for a defined benefit pension scheme. If you've got a defined contribution scheme, which is a scheme which you've opted into, you chose to go into it, you chose to lock your money away in it, then it's an investment pot of yours. It's one of your investment pots. Nobody is co-owning it with you. It's purely yours. So you do owe a zakat on it. Not all of it, of course, just the proportion of it that corresponds to money, gold, silver, trade stock, the proportion of the pot that's of zakatable asset. You can maybe find out more about that from the, your pension portfolio holder. We again have some research on what is typically zakatable in different pension schemes. I'll show that to you in a little bit. Cryptocurrencies, we say if these are payment currencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, just treat them like money because they were created to be an alternative to money. So just add it to your money and pay zakat on it. If these are NFTs, other forms of tokens not used for payment like NFTs, and there's no zakat on them unless you bought them to sell them, in which case they are trade stock for you. Investments for children. If you've got investments in the name of your children, scholars have a debate on wealth for children. Some of our scholars felt that there is no zakat due on the wealth of any person unless they are old enough to be responsible for worship, meaning they've reached puberty. If not, there's no zakat on their wealth. Others of our scholars felt that the Muslim public have a right on Muslim money, if I can call it that, even if it belongs to children. So again, we typically teach both positions, and we allow people to follow what suits their understanding and practice. Now, I've told you everything you add up. On one date of the year, what have you got? Money, gold, silver, trade stock, proportion of shares, proportion of pensions, cryptocurrency. Told you what you add up. What do you subtract? On that date, what do you owe somebody else? It could be in the form of a fine or a fee or a bill or an invoice. Not something you anticipate in the future. So not tomorrow's lunch bill or 3 months' times electricity bill. Not like that. What you already owe, you can subtract it. Now, we live in a strange economy which is built on encouraging long-term debt arrangements. And you are legally protected in this economy that the bank will never knock on your door and say, excuse me, we've decided we want 25 years of mortgage by Friday. You will never have that. You're legally protected that your long-term loan will stay long-term. And so in this environment, what scholars advise, it's a very common position I'm going to share with you, is that you don't subtract the whole value of the mortgage, but you're allowed to subtract up to the 12 months worth of repayments, not the interest of them, but the principal of them. That's what we advise on car repayment plans. That's what we advise on student loans. Whatever you're realistically planning to pay back this year, you can subtract, not the whole. Now, I finished everything I wanted to teach you. It sounds like a lot. It's hard to memorize. How can I do this practically? I'm going to just stop sharing my screen and then reshare. 1 second. Just give me a moment. And I'm almost done. Just a couple of minutes and then I'm done. So if I go to...
Thank you.
Okay. So now here we are. This is the website of National Zakat Foundation. If you just click on the button that says calculate, you've got a whole host of very, very helpful resources. There's one thing called free consultations. You can speak to a mufti and you can walk through your own zakat calculation with an expert. You can find the nisab values today and 20 years in the past if you're going to do a calculation. If you want something just to read, you can download a PDF guide on zakat, business zakat, and miss zakat. We have a knowledge bank where there's actually a video of a presentation just like this one without slides. If you want to hear it again, it's slower. It's like I've done it in twice the time. We've also got newly released an AI-powered chatbot, which has been fed by our Zakat knowledge banks. If I say, for example, do I pay Zakat on pensions, for example? So the gentleman is called Zaki over here, and Zaki is just thinking about my question, and I hope he won't think for too long. And he gives an answer saying it's not due on every pension, but certain pensions, not defined benefit, but defined contribution. If you want to know more, click on this link. So that link goes to the knowledge page, the knowledge bank. We've got a little video on pensions. We've got that research I was talking about. What is zakatable and typically in pension schemes? And then finally, if I go back to calculate, if you don't find your answer, you can just write to us, and we will send you either a link to our knowledge bank, a pre-answered question, or we'll give you a tailor-made answer. Zakat calculator. This is one of the best calculators you'll find online, and it's built exactly around the themes of my presentation. I'm going to pretend I have all of these assets and bills. You just walk through it. It literally walks you through my presentation. Cash in hand, cash in bank. Money owed to you in a loan, money owed to you from a sale. Gold, enter the value of your gold, or give us the weight, we'll calculate the scrap gold value. Did the scholars have a debate on it? Yeah, there's a little summary of that debate over there in case you want to be informed of that. Shares for resale, shares for other reason. The other reason has built into it the 25% proxy for my presentation. Pensions. You know what you want to pay, just add the value. Don't know what you want to pay? Tell us the type of pension, and we'll estimate from it what is zakatable in your pension scheme. Children's investments, a little bit of a debate what scholars had on children's investments. You want to add it there. Crypto, you add it there. You have a business, what's zakatable in any business? Just the cash of it, the receivables from sales, and the value of the stock. And then what do you owe other people? And that takes you through to the end of the calculation. It's a really, really, really helpful, very smart online resource. If I just go back one quick thing before I leave you here. So please do click on calculate and view the resources, just because I'm not going to come back to it again. If you click on contact us, I mentioned volunteering. You can click here on the volunteering page. We'd be very glad to train you to be an ambassador of Zakat in your community, to be an educator of Zakat to your communities, to raise funds for your community, or to advise people to apply for Zakat support as well. And just in one final minute, I'm just going to go back to my slides and then wrap up. Then I'm happy to take any questions that you have. I mentioned earlier today a few reflections on our duty to build our local communities where we are. My advice to everybody is, if you're not doing this already, at least start paying some of your zakat in the UK. It will start a journey for you about learning about the needs of your community. NZF is the only organization in the UK for the nationwide collection and distribution of zakat. We do this through cash grants for hardship relief. We do this through housing support to secure shelter. And we do it through training to upskill people to get into employment. We have a number of services for the givers of zakat, including this heat map, which you can see what money we've raised and distributed in your local area. We're part of a growing global movement for local zakat. So we have NZFs in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Netherlands, Germany, and growing. British Muslims have been and continue to be by far the most impoverished faith community. The stats here are from the top 4 are from a survey by Muslim Census that we supported them to carry out in 2022. The last stat is just very live. We literally have been receiving zakat applications 1 every 3 minutes. No one, as you'll see, many people in our community simply don't understand zakat, or how to calculate it, or why it's important, or how to pay it. No one can reach your communities like you can. No one can educate your networks like you can. So I'm genuinely requesting you to consider educating yourself, getting some resources, and educating your families. Thank you very, very much for your time. I think it's been exactly 35 minutes. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sohail. I'm sure everyone will agree that was absolutely brilliant and fantastic, mashallah. And genuinely, I think having NZF in this country and what they've established has been nothing short of absolutely amazing and brilliant for the Muslim community, because for one of our pillars of our faith, it gives us that really clear help and guidance, and what you've shared with us today, and the help online for everyone, and even the ability to even talk to a mufti, which is absolutely brilliant and amazing. So thank you so much. I think we have some time now to ask any questions you have. And like I said at the beginning, don't panic if you can't get your question covered today. There's plenty of opportunity after this seminar as well to do it. So please fire away, and I will leave it mostly to Dr. Sohail, but if I can chip in with anything from
I was about
financial
to say
investment.
you're quite the expert, so please feel free to chip
No,
in.
it's just on the investment side, I
well.
might be able to chip in a bit here and there. But I
Yeah.
think, please, on this one, can you please cover zakat on forestry and pensions? So I think we did pensions quite a bit, but you want to mention forestry and maybe anything else?
Would you like to explain how forestry works here? Or would you, if you would like to start by...
Yeah, so forestry, I think basically there are investments out there where you can invest in, sort of natural forests and planting trees, and what that yields in terms of not just good for the planet, but it's also good for, selling that on later on. And, there are investments that focus on forestry. So I suppose if it's a form of investment, and what you've said is that if you're looking to then sell on that investment and make a profit from it, then it would be zakatable, I would suggest.
Because it's a trade item, because you bought it to sell it. If you're
Yeah.
trading in this unit,
Yeah.
then it's
getting, I don't know if these investments pay a yield of some kind, where you get sort of some rental. That would be different then, wouldn't it? If there was a
correct.
rental.
So if it's not a unit you're buying to sell, then the only zakat you would owe is on what's zakatable in the underlying asset. And in the event that the asset is nothing but trees in a forest, then in first instance, it looks like there would be no zakat duty on it. But it all depends on how it's structured. And again, you would, I would actually defer to your...
You mentioned that there was a zakat treatment for agriculture as a separate asset class. Is that right? Is that
there is, but there's quite a few rules about the form of land. And so it depends on what kind of land it is. And so we'd have to find out. I mean, it's not black and white. That's all.
If any,
I
would suggest if anyone's got that type of investment, please do get in touch with National Zakat Foundation. Consult the scholars they have on they have the opportunity. You can go through and ask questions on this. So I think I would do that. Yeah. Okay. Another question from anyone? For kids, please. No. So, yeah, I mean, you answered this question. There is a difference of opinion, as I understand it. If you're under the age of puberty, then there is one view that zakat is not payable, and another view that zakat is payable. And the Hanafi view is very much the view that it's not payable if you're under the age of puberty. Yeah. But if you're over the age of puberty, the other three schools of thought, I think they do advise zakat is payable. So in that sense, you have a distinct difference of opinion. Isn't that right, Dr. Sohail? Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a difference of opinion. So that's why I can't choose for you. They're both strong opinions. They've got strong precedent, and so that's why I just say whatever suits your understanding, your practice, what you've been practicing. Then I leave that with you. On ISAs, I didn't really talk about, but you can figure it out from my presentation. If it's a cash ISA, then all of it is a zakatable asset. If it's a stocks and shares ISA, then what's only zakatable is, in our proxy, it's the 25% value, 2.5% of 25% of the whole worth of the pot.
Okay, if I hold an ETF that is mostly Sharia compliant but has minimum non-compliant stocks, how would I purify this, and what percentage zakat should I apply? So if it's I can probably take this one. If it is a Sharia compliant ETF, then the ETF, such as iShares, for example, or others in the market, they will generally advise on the purification amount. If there is any impure income in that ETF, etc., they have a duty really under the sort of the Sharia governance of that structure. The scholars will advise them to advise how much is incompliant or non-compliant income, and how much should be therefore, be given away to purify that. Often the ETF might do it internally within the ETF, or it might do it externally. They might ask you to do it externally. So that's on the non-compliant side. And then the zakat is, as Dr. Sohail has prescribed. My suggestion would be to pay the 25% of the 2.5% on an equity ISA. So it's an ISA that invests in equities alone, that's shares. If it's a ISA, I mean an ETF rather, that invests in shares and things like Sukuk, then it is worth maybe getting in touch with ourselves or National Zakat Foundation. We can have a look at it, because it will then depend on the proportion in equity and then the proportion in Sukuk, and the zakat rates are different for those type of assets. So it has to be looked in a bit more detail. But yeah, if you want further help on that, reach out to ourselves or to NZF. Yeah, we would be delighted to help, inshallah. Simon, I run a small clothing business from home. Do you pay zakat on the trade cost that I purchased the clothes or the current price I'm selling at today? That's one for you, Dr. Sohail.
Yeah, the scholars we work with, what they advised in manufacturing, and thank you for raising this, because I was going to mention it under the trade slide, is if you're dealing in manufacture, it could be clothing, it could be wood that you turn into furniture, it could be food ingredients you turn into cooked food in a restaurant. If you're in a manufacturing space, then when your zakat date comes, you're going to have some items as a raw product and some items as a finished product. And for each of these, you just want to estimate what would it get you on the market if you sold it today. Your raw items as raw items, your finished items as finished items. So that's what we recommend.
Okay, you said also the business has a separate bank account. Would I pay for the business account or person, or is that irrelevant? So I think with the business side of things, it's dependent. So this is a common question. I'm glad you raised this as well, Saima. Is that people think? Someone told me recently that they came across someone who said, "Oh, it's my business. That's not my asset. I don't pay zakat on the business." But that's the wrong notion, because obviously the business has an ownership, and so the ownership. So let's say you've got a business where there's two shareholders, husband and wife, and you've got £10,000 of money in your business account, and you, let's for argument's sake, share the same zakat date. Then, if there's a joint ownership in the business 50-50, then you would be deemed to own £5,000 of that cash, and your husband would be deemed to own £5,000 of that cash. So that in your zakat calculation, that £5,000 needs to be added for each of you accordingly. So yeah, the business bank account is relevant for your zakat calculation. Okay, I have a SIP which holds cash. I'm currently taking income from it, which is taxable as per income tax. It's my only income. When I have done the NZ calculate, it says I have to pay on full amount. It means I'm paying more than a third of my income, which is struggle and does not feel like a hair trim. Yeah, so yeah, maybe something that you can take.
I think, I don't have. Also open for your contribution. I don't have a strong answer here, only because I think it would be good for you to have a chat with someone to understand the details of your situation and to see how best to come up with a solution that works for you. Because if it's correct what you're saying and it holds cash, it is tricky, because once you because you're taking income from it, there's a tax that you're deducting anyway. So then after the tax, I appreciate why the calculator said pay on the full. I appreciate why it's difficult, and I'd recommend you have some conversation with someone to see how we can come up with a solution that works really right for you. I'm sorry, I'm not going to say more at this stage in this forum. Faisal, if you want to say something.
Yeah, no, I would be led by you, to be honest, because these are difficult situations when when someone is sort of budgeting and relying on income from an asset, and then that asset is obviously declining and they don't have any other source of income, etc. It is a difficult situation.
No.
But I think you're right. I think probably best to book a call with one of the muftis at NZF or the advisors at NZF, and I think to go through it, and I think they will look at it in holistically and come up with something.
And you're welcome to reach out to Faisal as well if you want to chat with him, and you're welcome to also on the contact question page if you want to ask just to speak with me, because I just think I might want to loop some other people as well to help you. So let's just main thing is we have to find a solution that works for your situation. We just need to know what the situation is a bit better, and that's
Yeah.
all.
Okay, that's very kind. And yeah, Dr. Ho, actually, one question that came up from my team earlier today was that the gift aid that you get when you make a zakat contribution, let's say to NZF or whatever, and you tick the box that you're a UK registered taxpayer, and therefore the charity can claim the 25% gift aid. Or, is that in any way, shape, or form contribute towards your zakat bill or not? I don't know if you have that.
I mean, I had a very clear answer when he started the sentence. By the time he finished the sentence, I started wondering, is there a way for me to rethink about this? So let me come to my clear answer first. Then we can think if we want to rethink it. The very clear answer is no, it's not part of your zakat, because all that's happened is you've given your wealth away in tax. You've removed your own ownership of that amount of wealth and gave the ownership to somebody else, which is the government. And then this somebody else is saying, if you like, I'm happy to gift on your behalf this money, which I took from you, which is now mine. I'm happy to do that as part of our friendship, or relationship. So then it's not really your money, because it's not coming back to you. You can't say, no, actually just put it in my pocket instead. You don't actually have ownership of that money. You can't say, give it to my mate. So it's not really your money. It's left your hand. It's gone to a stranger. But the stranger is willing to do a cooperative gift with you, saying, if you like, I'm happy to give some of it to this third party. So when you look at it like that, it wasn't yours, and it wasn't part of your zakat calculation. Like, you didn't add it to your zakat calculation, and it's not part of the money that you're paying out. It's just an external gift. Similarly, because some people get like a tax relief as well. I'm paying my zakat out. I'm getting some tax benefit to myself. That's again like a gift. It's not really part of your zakat calculation. That's the simple answer I have. You want to add anything further there, Faisal?
No. I think I'm with you. I think that's my kind of logic as well, to be honest. But okay, no problem. We're coming to 4 minutes or 3 minutes now left of the 1 hour allocated to this. So if anyone got any last questions, please do post it. Otherwise, I would just like to sort of finish off by 2 or 3 key messages. One is a huge thank you to Dr. Sohail and to NZF for doing this with us. It's an absolute honor and privilege for us, because what you shared today was brilliant. It was clear, it was educational, it was enlightening, and I think it gave us all a lot of help. So thank you for that. And I urge you all to use NZF if you get motivated through this or through your own thinking to become a volunteer, to the wonderful opportunity that was presented today. That's also great. It's a form of ibadah. It would be wonderful for anyone to do that. That's number one. Number two, as you see going across the screen, we do at Simply Ethical have the ability for you to book a 15-minute free consultation with one of our business financial advisors or financial coaches. And we would be delighted to have that discussion with you to help you in your financial planning, to help you become more Sharia compliant in your financial planning, etc. So if you do want to take advantage of that, please do book through our website a free consultation. And lastly, just wanted to wish everyone a very blessed and fruitful, inshallah, Ramadan. We are very near the blessed month, so I hope you all have a wonderful Ramadan. Please keep everyone, the whole ummah, in your du'as, especially obviously our brothers and sisters in Gaza and other places in the world who are suffering at this moment in time. And I wish and pray that all of you have a wonderful Ramadan, and we hopefully will be in touch soon with all of you, inshallah. But thank you for attending today, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much indeed.